We call to order the work session of October 8th, 2024. The first topic under general business is discussion on parking in the downtown area. I think we have a memo from the village manager in front of us. Doug, you care to address some of this for us?
Yeah, so I'll make it pretty brief. Parking in the downtown has been an issue for a very long time. And before we go and look at alternatives and potential solutions, most likely time-based parking solutions with some sort of technology aspect to help us better enforce it. I just want to make sure that that is something that the council is interested in us doing before we spin our wheels. In the memo, you can see for 20 years, it was collected, 30 years, not 30, anyway. It was collected downtown. There was time parking. The amount of revenue that was brought in did not cover the cost that we spent to enforce it all, so it was discontinued in 2008. We can increase the fee amount if we need to adjust that. And then there's been several studies over time that, there is definitely congestion on Market Street and Chinkopin during the lunchtime rushes, but there is typically spaces still available in the Sandlot. So I think you already all know all this. I guess, what do you want me to do going forward? Is it appropriate for me to reach out to different vendors and see what potential parking solutions there are that could work for us?
I'd like to hear everybody else's thoughts before we start going to vendors. So I'll ask the person who knows the most of this, going back to the horse and buggy era, Jack Farrell, who can tell us how they used to park that buggy. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it is a problem that's been around for a while. I guess we all know that. My overall impression is that, there's two issues. One is we're trying to fight human nature, which is the first parking spot you see you're going to take. And the second nature is that it's convenient for me to park close to my work, and I think I'll park there and stay there all day. And so those things they've been trying to address those for years. I do think my personal opinion is, number one, I think that, and this is going back a little bit, you probably don't want to hear this, that I think we did not do the village any favor by continuing to put off and or canceling thoughts of an additional parking facility, that is the Carriage House, which was to be behind the Holly Inn. Of course, it took a significant lease arrangement with the resort to do that. But it would have provided an additional minimum, somewhere in the neighborhood of minimum 70, possibly even up to 100 additional parking places, and give us a place to designate besides the Sandlot for people who want to park long-term to go. So I think that that was a mistake, totally putting that on hold. It was put on hold in 2013 when, at the very same time, we were doing Tufts Park and the complete revision downtown, so obviously it was too much to handle at one time. But I think we should, in fact, look at it again. My second thought is that I would be in favor of a couple things. One is to take the signs we have downtown, which say something to the effect of reserved for dine, park, or pine, shop, and whatever it is. They appear to be no more than just sign litter. I think they should be removed. But I would be in favor of a 3-hour parking limit if, in fact, we could enforce it with minimal signage, such as signage coming into the area saying this area, has 3-hour parking limit or something to that effect. And we could find a technology that's not too invasive to enforce it. And it's not terribly expensive to enforce. I think that would be of some value. So I don't think it's as big a problem as we're kind of making it out to be every day, but I think there are some things we could address and do that may alleviate the situation to a bit.
Barb, your thoughts?
Agree with everything Jack has said. In addition, the major complaint I hear is that people who are working are the ones that are taking these spaces downtown and not leaving them for visitors, shoppers, you know, shorter term options. And that has consistently been the case, and we just keep throwing solutions at this, and, you know, nothing has ever really worked very well. I am in favor of a 3-hour limit if we could do something that is on, that is affordable. The thing that concerns me about that is in the case of the memo that Jeff Batten wrote, the way people got around that was to go out and switch their cars around. So if that concerns me, because are we just going to end up in the same place? And I don't know, and I'm not saying no, we can't do anything, because I think there are technologies probably available which we should pursue. The one other thing I think we should pursue, and it's kind of related to our survey, you know, involvement of our residents in solutions. Maybe there's somebody out there that's got a really good idea, and as a matter of fact, I know of someone out there who does have an idea. I don't know how good it is because I haven't seen it, but it's a parking app. And, you know, should we touch base with our residents and get their input on this as well? Even in terms of defining what the problem is. I'm not sure I have a clear understanding of what the problem really is. Is it more spaces, or is it something else?
Yeah, just to address one little thing that Barb said. If we did do parking, time parking, we'd probably do it by zone, so you would at least have to move your car to another zone. So maybe Market Square is a zone and Chinkopin's a zone, so you'd have to at least move it from Market to Chinkopin.
Well, I recall back in the time when I was working in Washington, D.C., we had an effort to what was called feed the meter, which is the same thing as moving your car to another zone. You'd go out there with a handful of quarters, you'd feed the meter, and you could stay the rest of the day. But at any rate,
I came to believe as a candidate that the opinions of and I think, first of all, we're right. We have a problem essentially on one block of two streets, Chinkopin and Market Street. And in talking to as many of the business owners as I either already knew or could introduce myself to, I came to believe that what we really had was a circular firing squad. Everybody else could identify somebody who was at fault, and it was the people in the bank or the people, the brokers. It didn't matter. I think ultimately, as a council, we're first and foremost responsible to the citizens. And secondly, we have a specific strategic objective to support the business community. Now, the desires of the business community are not unified. I would support I think we should revisit the 3-hour parking that we put in place for the U.S. Open Week. I agree that we should minimize signage, and I also believe that the shop and dine signs are viewed as largely irrelevant. Because we haven't really enforced much of anything, I think there is a sense of entitlement of some people. You know, I never worked in a building my entire professional career where I had an assigned parking space. There are places that do, that certainly residential buildings, sometimes you'll have that, but to the best of my knowledge, the public parking streets, no one has the right to park there because they rent a storefront or rent an office upstairs or what have you. So right. I think that's the direction that we will go. Not everyone will be happy, but if we're going to make an omelet, we're going to have to break some eggs. And I think that probably satisfies the largest majority of concerned people.
Dr. Morgan, you have a cure for this disease?
Yes. Timed parking, I concur with it. And I think we can look at a variety of different technologies to assist with it, to enforce it. It must be enforced. It's not going to work if you don't enforce it. So I actually support 2-hour parking versus 3. on there, and I would love to be able to increase the fines for infractions, so we can enforce that on there. Um, we have a wonderful place to live. It's quaint, beautiful, inviting, and I think that we need to make sure that we preserve that, and certainly to preserve our retailers in the downtown area fits in with that vision on there. So yes, I would like timed parking, and I know it's probably going to end up costing us more than we were going to get from it, but it's something I'm certainly willing to entertain. I think we need to find a route to make it as cheap as possible.
Well, I too have some thoughts, going back to my feed the meter days. First of all, a short anecdotal story. A few weeks ago, I was driving down Cherokee, getting ready to, looking for a parking spot by the roast. And this person in front of me turned into a vacant spot there. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to have to drive around the block because I couldn't see anything else. And all of a sudden, the person starts to back out. So I watched them. They backed out. And then they went 2 spots up, and they pulled into this other spot. Now, the only difference between those 2 spots was that the first spot had the sign on it, shop, dine, or whatever the thing was. He went to so this person made a decision, it was the same size spot, to go to the one without the sign. Now, I have no idea if what motivated him was to look at that sign and say, you know, I'm really not going to do any of those things. Let me see if I can find another spot. Anyway, that's anecdotal, but I have never forgotten that experience because I have no other explanation for it. I think that the way I would generally approach this, if there is some software that can intelligently function to help us monitor, and I'm a 3-hour guy, not a 2-hour guy, parking, let's see it. Let's see how it works. Let's have it demonstrated. Let's see what the police chief says about it. Whether we can find it or not, I think the first thing we should do, and I think all our action should begin on January 1st or after. We should not force any action here during the holiday shopping season. Is I would increase the fine to the maximum level possible. I believe it's $50. Okay, we have to have some deterrent to these folks who park. And I realize we don't get all that money. I think if the system is the same as it was years ago, what is it,
We get
90 cents on the dollar goes to the school system? Or?
10%.
Yeah, we get 10%.
So we're helping education while we're putting a fine on people. I think doing that and/or when we figure on a technological solution, we have to notify building owners well in advance. We have to notify shopkeepers. We have to ask them to notify their employees because part of this is marketing and education. But I do think $50 is a big deterrent. And if there is software to monitor 3-hour parking, there ought to be software where we can find a way to collect the fees for the violators of our parking code. There's got to be some way. I remember one of the things at Washington, D.C. in the years I was there was they were famously unsuccessful at many things they did as a local government. But the one thing that they were like rated as one of the top in the country was their parking enforcement system. They had boots they'd put on cars. They had stiff fines. I'm not suggesting boots on cars. I'm just telling you that it was a remarkable, having paid some fines there, they follow up and they would boot the car with the you had 2 tickets, goodbye.
Well, I don't want Pinehurst to be featured on Parking Wars. You
No,
know.
I don't either. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that a good fine can go a long way. And lastly, on a facility, someone, maybe it was John, I think one of the things we should look at when we look at the Village Place is the water tank world, and to see if that can possibly be somewhat of a facility or part of a whatever's developed there, so that there are some, excuse me, additional parking spots available, because that's walkable to the village. And that's pretty much where I'm at it right now.
I meant to add also that I think as part of our strategic plan, we probably need to add consideration of a parking facility back into at least our thought. We may come to no
I'd like to see
conclusion,
that.
but for us to not even have it on there is.
Well,
is
that's why I'm suggesting that the water tank world there might be workable.
Yeah, that was
One, we own the
explored.
property, which is much different than having to get into an agreement with a third party. And it's relatively vacant land right now. So we ought to factor that in. But I do think this is a marketing, part of this is marketing it correctly. And I think we can do that. So
Do we know how a parking limit would be advertised and/or would it be similar to, I mean, we have, as you enter the village in any number of different streets, you have that sign that's posted about no parking on village streets overnight. I forget exactly how it reads. Is that all you need as you enter that district? Do you have any idea right now?
I would have to look at some best practices, and you want to be clear enough that if you're actually issuing tickets, that they had a reasonable knowledge that they should not have been parking there for more than 3 hours or
Okay.
2 hours, whatever it is. I will say that I think it should be less signs than what we currently have with the dine and shop signs. So
Okay.
Well, what did we do for the week of the US Open where we implemented 3 hours?
yeah, so we had some A-frame signs that we just kind of spread out throughout the village core.
I think between advertising in public media, the pilot and so forth, and other things that we can do, and word of mouth through the business owners themselves.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of visitors, obviously, so we just kind of need to keep that in mind too.
Well, I don't think visitors would be a huge issue, although I will say that you may not realize, but there's a lot of people who stay at the Holly Inn who park overnight on our streets.
Yep.
Rather than use the parking lot behind the Holly Inn, as well as employees do that too, you know. So,
you said the Holly Inn. Okay, I was thinking of the Pinecrest Inn. They have ample parking behind the Pinecrest Inn. It's very rarely
At the
seen.
Holly, yeah.
Yeah, the Holly.
Pat, there's an ancillary issue that plays into this, which is better supervision of the delivery trucks, particularly in the morning, the food delivery trucks. I've spoken to the driver for the Cisco truck. I've spoken to several of the other drivers who are there all the time. And I was surprised to find out they can actually access the people who are delivering food to the restaurants can get in at any hour. They have pass keys, if you will. They can be there at 4 o'clock in the morning and be gone. And most of them don't want to be in the village at 10 o'clock in the morning anyway. But I think by 9 or 9:30, if they're not in a commercial zone, I don't care where they are, there has to be enforcement there.
Yeah, that's an issue that we have also dealt with for a long time. And
Well, Doug, how far are we from seeing a presentation of viable technological options?
yeah, so we just need to reach out to vendors. We have a sample RFP that I included in there, but yeah, I will send that out, next couple of days to vendors, and they can get back to us with.
I would encourage that one too. Is there a gold standard of some community of our size out there that has sort of, I'll say, solved with a small s their problem?
So I've heard that Boone, North Carolina does a great job with their parking.
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's not a community I'm not going to reach out to soon.
Right.
But Sanford recently did something that we can reach out and see what they did. And there's a lot of small communities on the coast that deal with similar issues like this. We can reach out to them too. And these vendors are going to be like, yeah, we work with this town nearby you. So I think that would be a good way to figure out who's doing things.
I'd be curious to hear the technological options, because I'm just, I don't know, I'm skeptical about it.
There are I don't know how far we want to go down the road, but I think they have the ability to have a camera at one location that can look at multiple license plates and tell when it's been there for more than 3 hours.
Yeah, I don't want to get carried away here, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
But
Well, I think the
there's options.
chief believed that there was license plate reading software that is basically attached to the car, if I understood it, and they drive down the street and
It'll just mark who's been there for more than 3 hours, so
it's less expensive than physically having someone walk in chalk tires, even if
Much
they could do
easier.
that anymore.
Yeah, I think the fact that there is a regulation and there are fines, and they are significant fines, you know, and it will be enforced, is probably enough to solve half the problem, or maybe in 3/4 of the problem.
Do we know how many $5 tickets we've issued in the last few years?
Oh, besides the U.S. Open, I'd have to look, but not.
Well, I'd like to find out, because I don't know of one person who's ever complained to me about a parking ticket, and I told them I
Got
can't
a
help
couple,
you.
but yes.
And the lot in front of the Villager Deli and the lot in front of the theater building, which are on private property,
Private.
we will not be policing those at all. People in theory could park there all day long,
So
as far as we are concerned.
what happened with the U.S. Open is that we talked to the owner and got some sort of agreement. They agreed that we could treat it like any other public parking.
For the Open.
Yeah, if that's going to be a long-term thing, we'd have to discuss that.
I'd be skeptical they'd agree to that.
So what might be a little confusing in that lot in front of the Villager is that half of it is public parking. So like from the flagpole down, I don't know how many spots that is, but part of it is village and part of it is private.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Is there, do we, if we had a pie chart in front of us, how would the business owners downtown feel about the various options?
Probably depends on the type of business.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to I'm searching for an answer, because there
Well,
doesn't seem to be unity.
No, there's not. John identified that, and I concur with that. So if you're talking about a retail merchant, they want the time parking.
Okay.
All right, and you're talking about a non-retail type of shop.
Real estate
and
agent,
say
yeah.
Real estate agent, that kind of stuff. They're not nearly as concerned about that.
Right.
And
I think even the greatest resistance might come from people renting space or leasing the space on the second floors of some of the buildings.
And how about the restaurants?
I would assume that they're wanting timed parking also, because they want the turnover. And people be able to park closer to their restaurants. Certainly the ones I've talked to always supported timed parking. And I've gone down there many times, and that has not changed from there.
It's mostly the lunch crowd, because by dinner time, the retail shops are mostly closed, and there typically is a fair amount of parking.
True. And you also,
People
There-
upstairs are out.
there are complaints about people who work there or actually work at the country club have been parking there. And there's been complaints about folks who have been the caddies and things like that that have been
That's
parking
just-
there for long term.
I've
Bottom
been
line
that
to it
lately.
is you need turnover in the area where you have merchants. I've got no desire to put time parking in the sand lot. Okay? I do have desire to put time parking in the streets around the businesses.
I have not heard the caddy issue raised recently
I haven't either.
by merchants downtown. I don't know whether there's,
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've heard that being an issue. I think it resolved itself.
And that is purely hearsay. I have not personally seen anything with that. I'm just stuff I've
Yep.
heard, that's all.
it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, I just haven't heard.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not an issue.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of questions we're going to need to work out, but I personally have a direction that you're not going to tell me like 2 years ago. I was like, no, don't bother doing that. So I'm comfortable moving forward, and we'll have other issues that we'll have to work out the details.
It's
good.
Okay, and one of the things we want to find out is about the collection apparatus. In addition to the time limit, I think if parkers know we're serious, violators know we're serious about the fine and collecting it, again, I think it'll be a deterrent, and we'll help turn things over if that's our objective.
Are there any other areas where parking has become, I mean, it was an issue when the brew pub first opened along Magnolia and so forth. We provided them some extra space there. or they got some extra space, I should say, right along the CenturyLink building.
Oh, yeah.
And, but right now, it's not known to be a big issue. For a while, it was a huge issue. People were parking all over the place on Magnolia.
And have we largely resolved the issue of the temporary parking adjacent to some of the tennis courts? It was done during the construction of the two
That's pretty
USG.
cleared out. They re-pine strawed
Oh,
it,
yeah.
you know, and they repaved the lot that's next to the tennis building, you know, so to speak. So at least at point now, the caddies are parking over on the railroad property.
And some are parking in the new lot by the spa, because they can, and it's a little bit of a walk, or they get on one of the shuttle buses and they go to the resort. Okay, anything else in the parking area? We're gonna have some follow-up, and it'll, I guess it'll more than likely be a discussion either at our December meeting or at a retreat. Does that sound right?
Problem solved.
Okay, let's try to put it on the December calendar for now. At least an update of where we are. Okay, now I will entertain a motion regarding the closed session that is on our work session agenda.
I move to recess the work session, enter into a closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11 Alpha 5 to establish or to instruct the public's bodies, staff, or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating, 1, the price and other material concerns of contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or 2, the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's prepare for a closed session. Thank you.